no one was my master, but I might be master of everything, if I wished, if I dared.
Hi, and welcome to Twin Flames Between Worlds podcast. My name is Tabitha.
And I'm Liesl.
And hi, welcome to our 5th mini episode of our ACOTAR series, Mist and Fury series, season 2. Ooh. I am oh my gosh, so excited. We had the High Lord of Spring, Night, and, well, our Fox Boy Lucian, which we hope might be turned into something else. But yes, now we have Feyre Archeron herself here today from the graphic audio production, Melody Muze with us here today.
Hello! Thank you for letting me be part of this. Yay!
So it's so surreal. I think I'm even sitting here. I knew this was going to happen, but then part of me is like, wait, we're actually talking to each other? And I'm like, oh my god, this is so great.
Yeah, it definitely started, well, it didn't really hit me until this morning. So it started to hit me this morning, and I'm starting to get super excited, so.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I mean, that really is so that's so sweet. I mean, I still am wrapping my head around people being really excited to talk to me, just because it's like, I'm a regular schmegular person. I'm not a star or anything, but that does make me really happy that people seem genuinely excited to talk to me. And as I told you all earlier, I love this sort of thing. I love talking to people who are fans and, getting to know more people and what they like about this stuff and everything. So this is fun for me too. Very fun.
That's so great that it's like 2 extroverts and an introvert. This is going to go great.
Honestly, I'll probably start speaking really quickly and then my words will start to jumble together. So stop me if I do that.
No worries. I do that when I'm recording. So you're in good company.
Great part. It's not live. We can edit it.
That is true.
Yeah, we can edit.
Just like with my recordings get edited. So yeah, it's all good. Totally normal.
We talked about that before, and us talking about live performance and, with the other guys and they've done live performance for it. There's a beauty to live performance, but sometimes, I want to edit that thing that I just said.
Yeah. See, can't relate because I'm in the closet, so all the time. My booth.
Okay.
I'm not in the closet, if you know, you know, but I am literally in a closet to record, so...
Well, I started off when I started a couple years ago, started doing like songwriting stuff, and my parents got me like an actual recording mic. And I don't have good bass in my room, so I started sneaking into their closet and recording in there.
That's where most voice actors and narrators record, is a closet.
Yeah, yep. I'm on my way.
You're on your way. Off to a great start.
Liesl was actually out of the closet as well.
Yeah, I like being in the closet, out of the closet, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I like everything out of the closet. So anyways.
No, just go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
All right. Well, hello. My name is Melody Muze. That is short for Muslakovich, and that's because I am into the Greek mythology, and I do love the muses. So I thought that was a great representation for my brand because I am all about whimsy and art. I love magic. I'm a very spiritual person when I'm not recording, but even then, it's still part of what I do to a certain extent. So yeah, Melody Muze, and I am so happy to be here.
That is legit so great. Funny enough, I'm also into like magical stuff outside. I am a legit Disney princess, and my friends have told me this multitude of times.
It's true.
It is true. I sing to the deer. That is how magical I am. And they
love I love that.
And then everyone gets mad at her.
Yeah, it was
I
like
love it. I think that's fantastic.
Thank you. I don't really tell too many people because if they do, they're just like, well, they don't come up to me. It's like, well, you don't have a pretty voice.
Oh,
Well, I only say that to some people.
Right. I got you.
So I guess like my first question is like, how did you get into voice acting? And, you know, because I know you said that you didn't do much live, but so how did you get into the game?
So the way I got into voiceover, it's not a super complicated story, but growing up, I was always an artistic person, right? I was always a bit of a visionary. And so I started with singing, right? Because my family is a family of musicians and singers. So I already had that under my belt. I do a lot of that still to this day, and I'm actually trying to get more involved with it. But the singing, you know, I've always been a very animated, expressive person. Even when I'm just talking regularly to people, I'm changing my voices, I'm telling a story, and, you know, I'm painting a vision using my voice. And I've always been very good with my voice. So one day when I was, you know, a little bit younger, because I've been in this game for about, 10 years now, so a while ago, I was doing what all of us wannabe Disney princesses do. We're singing out loud, obnoxiously for the whole world to hear, 2 songs. And I was even acting out the scenes, right?
Wow.
So, that's how committed to it I was. And so one day I felt like I was particularly loud and annoying. So I was like, Dad, I am so sorry about that. And he was like, you know what? You're really good at that. I think you should make it a career. And it was the biggest light bulb moment that I've ever had. It was a genuine epiphany because, mind you, when that happened, I was going through a really rough time because I didn't really know what I wanted. I didn't know what direction to take in my life because I had a very rough teenage situation because I was very sick physically. And, I had a lot of things kind of taken away from me during that period. So when I was finally better, like we found out what was wrong with me and I was on the mend and everything, now I was in that weird place of, well, I was so focused on just trying to feel better all those years. Now I'm really behind everyone else and I have no idea what I want to do with my life. And so that's when singing was really helpful to me, but I didn't even realize I was doing this, but voiceover. Because even when I wasn't singing, I was world building. I was world building because, I'm a daydreamer to the extreme and I love to make my own worlds, make my own characters because, again, I was also an artist. So I was really falling into the rabbit hole that was art. And it was my biggest support system for what I was going through. And that's when I was starting to realize, wait a minute, I've been doing voiceover this whole time because I don't just make these scenes, I act out these scenes, even if it's with myself. I know it makes me sound kind of, but it was, I was like, no, this is just what creative people do. We talk to ourselves and we talk to ourselves in different character voices as these characters. And it just was the biggest light bulb moment. So I got my crummy headset. It was really crappy and cheap. And I just started auditioning for these volunteer projects because I was like, well, let's just dabble in it. Let's just see what happens. And I got very quickly cast for something and I fell right into character very easily. And that's when I was like, oh, wait a minute, there's something here. And I just fell down that rabbit hole and I fell in love. So, and here we are 10 years later.
I don't think I feel like I felt more seen and appreciative at the same time.
Right?
That's great. Not only like what you said, I just wanted to highlight, about like the struggle finding what you want. Like, I feel like we're all, especially like I would say for us personally, even to a certain extent, yeah, like that's still an ongoing thing for many people.
Yeah.
Wow, that is so inspiring. So inspiring.
Yeah. And I always tell myself that I am genuinely so lucky that I have found what I want to do and that I've been able to pursue it because a lot of people don't get those opportunities. And that's why I feel like if you're going to freelance, if you're going to like go for something artistic, then this is my personal opinion, it's something you really need to go for. Go for it. Put it all in there because so many people don't even get that chance. So if you get the chance, go for it, really commit to the bit. So yeah, that's how I got into voiceover.
That's actually like insane though. A lot of the things that you just said, like totally, apply to both of us, honestly. But yeah, my mind is like blown actually though.
Especially us like getting into this. Wanting to do a podcast was kind of like a random, midnight drunken thought where we're actually really good talking to each other. And it's, maybe we should like actually do that. And then it was like, oh no. And then just a passing thing. And then we're like, no, let's do it.
I feel like everybody has something to say. And I feel like everybody's voice should be heard in some way, somehow. And that's why I think podcasting is really cool. I do think there are some people who we could use less podcasts from. If you know, you know.
Yes.
But for lovely people like yourself, I definitely encourage using your voice and letting it be heard and letting yourselves be seen, because everyone's got something to share. Everyone's got something that they've experienced that maybe someone else has experienced or maybe someone else hasn't experienced. Either way, every person's voice is valuable and should be heard.
Gosh,
That's the diplomat in me, by the way.
We're only like, what, 5 minutes and you're going to make me cry already? Like,
oh, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to do that.
Already got like all of the best quotes from you out already.
but yeah.
But yeah, I guess then we should probably dive into it. So how you said that you got into voice acting just by like trying and going for auditions and stuff. How did you end up landing the role of Feyre?
So, great question. I was part of graphic audio because I sent them an email. This is part of like what I do as a voice actor. I send people an email saying, hi, here's my portfolio. I would really like to work with you. And that's basically what I did with graphic audio. I was like, you know what? I love what you do. I love your concept because, you know, for someone like me, hearing an audio drama, I was like, I'm totally into this. I'm all about this. How do I work with you? So I sent them an email. I showed them my portfolio and I got very lucky because they did actually look at my email and they did review my portfolio. And this is what actually sold me. They're not really looking just for people who can narrate. They want to hear you act. And in voiceover, the big selling point for me was my video game reel because that's kind of what they look for. They look for the acting that you're going to find more in video games versus like anime or even animations. Even though a lot of animations nowadays have more grounded natural acting, there are still some that are very cartoony and over the top and comedic and whatnot. But no, like they really wanted the natural grounded reading that you will find in a lot of video games. So that's what sold me to them. They were like, you know what? We like what we heard. We're bringing you on board. Now, when it comes to Feyre, I did have to audition for her, but I am really proud to say that I was like the first person to get cast in the whole cast. Yeah. And so that was really exciting to learn because Sarah J. Maas did have a hand in who played who. A lot of people don't know that. She and her team did have a direct hand in who got to play who. And she specifically requested I audition for Feyre because she really liked the youth in my voice and she likes it. She wanted someone who didn't sound super polished. She wanted someone who didn't sound refined. She wanted someone who sounded real, like a real person. And so I auditioned for it. And mind you, I didn't know anything about these books. I was like, you know, I didn't know anything. I was like, oh, cool, this sounds nice. I mean, I had heard about it from my sister-in-law and her friends who have all read it. And they're like, oh, do you like saucy stuff? And do you like fantasy? And I was like, I mean, yeah, actually, yes, I do like these things. And they were like, oh, well, you should read this. And I was like, okay, I'll probably try to get around to it. But gosh, I'm doing audiobooks all the time and in voiceover. So I'm usually playing video games on my off time or drawing, you know, because it's like, okay, that's enough reading for a while, right? But yeah, so it was pretty funny because we literally spoke about ACOTAR, right? And I got an email saying graphic audio was like, we're super excited to say we get to actually make a production of ACOTAR. And I was like, oh, good for you, graphic audio. I'm happy for you. And then like a week later, I get an email saying, Melody, would you like to audition for Feyre Archeron? And I was like, that name sounds really familiar. So I looked it up and I was like, oh, this Feyre. Oh, the main protagonist. Oh, yes, I would like to do that. Thank you. So... So that's exactly what I did. I sent in my audition, gave my best take of how Melody, would portray Feyre. And, you know, Colleen, the director, Colleen Delaney, fun fact, if you don't know this, she is the voice actress for Lydia in Skyrim.
Oh, that's
wow.
Oh. And
fun fact.
Did she also, so for Silver Flame, was she also like the third person narrator?
She was, yep.
Yep, that's what it was. Yep.
That is her. And I didn't know this at the time, of course. Like, I was still like, I don't know who you are, but you seem real sweet and friendly. And yeah, I was pretty like, ooh, yeah. So, but yeah, they got back to me like a week or so later, and she let me know that I was Feyre, that I was cast as Feyre. And I was like, holy crap, that's a big deal, right? And I was like, ooh, this is so exciting. And yeah, that's how it happened.
The seal of approval from Sarah.
Yay!
So not that you needed that. But.
No, but it is pretty cool to be told, like, hey, you know, the one who wrote this series was like, you know, I want her to audition. I hear something here. And then to even be picked and to be like the first one handpicked. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, great, cool. And, of course I auditioned because Colleen was picking from the roster. And that was another thing, is that I'm younger sounding, which is, I think something that Sarah J. Maas really wanted was someone who sounded very young, because Feyre is very young. And I was like, okay, cool. I've got that down. I don't have to work for that. I just sound like that. So, cool. Works for me.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so oh my goodness, that's such a great story. Also, yeah, not even knowing, but then just oh god, not knowing Feyre, not knowing like the journey that this girl's gonna go on, but it's so fun.
Oh yeah, As a performer, these books were really fun to perform. They really were. Narration, performing her dialogue, fantastic. As a performer, I got to really think about the nuance, which is really fun for me. I really love thinking about nuance. Like, how can I make this really shatter people's hearts? Or how can I make people get angry with me? Like, how can I do this? I do like to do that very much. So
I think it really fit the feelings into it very well.
Thank you.
So I'm about halfway through the graphic audio of Mist and Fury, and I just convinced my mom to start reading Mist and Fury. She made it through the first book, and she was like, okay. And then the second book was like around chapter 11-ish, and she's like, why is Feyre so wishy-washy?
It's the point. That's the point.
I'm like, it's across.
And here's the thing. I could go on a whole tangent about this and I have before on other podcasts, actually. I say this, but I've, because I've been interviewed as well before about this, and I've been on the tangent where I feel like people need to give Feyre a little bit more grace. She's 19. Her brain's not even fully developed yet. Can you give my girl some slack? Like, of course she's not going to be the brightest bulb in the chandelier. Of course not. None of us were.
No, yeah, 100%. Anytime, we are so much on the same wavelength, this is crazy. I agree 100%, not because I just love these books. Sarah J. Maas is my god tier author. She helped me get out of a really tough spot with these books and her writing, and it will forever be that for me. So that's why I will defend these books till my dying breath, and I think
she will.
100% for, yeah, the whole reason we started a podcast anyway. For Feyre, yeah, like, my friend had the same sort of inclination where it was like, oh my god, Feyre's so annoying, and da-da-da, like, and I was like, first of all, you can't even fathom, like, an actual real life scenario that you could, her whole world is getting, not only, it's like 3 times her world got shit. First was when, like, she learned that all the stuff in the human realm that she thought was true about the fairies weren't true at all. They're actually, some of them are actually kind, some, whatever. And trusting that, but at the same time being cautious. Something sane to me. And then, not only that, figuring out all the stuff that they told her was a lie by the end of the first book. So another whole shift. And then, we get to the first part of Mist and Fury, where again, the world is getting shifted to where, like, all the stuff that was before, it's like, oh, wait, Rhysand. Not as bad a person. And, like, the whole world just blew up from there. And it's like, give this girl some fucking slack. She also is the curse breaker. She saved everybody. Shut up.
Literally, like, by the point of where we are right now, discussing Akamath, she's literally 20.
Yeah.
She's not even,
not fully developed. Not fully developed. So
it's like, and yet this girl has also, like, done more things with her life than I have.
I mean, and, I have the very controversial opinion of, I love flawed characters. I love characters who are not perfect and who mess up or do things that make me go, oh, Feyre, what are you doing? Yeah. But also because, it's like, okay, but I also can understand why she would do these things. Because it's like, well, I was 20 once, and anyway, we're not going to talk about that, but I was 21.
And it's good to, like, see flawed characters, because if they're perfect, like,
absolutely,
then you almost hate them more because they're perfect.
Yeah, there's no character development either. There's nothing else to do, right? There's no journey to go on of seeing, and that's what I really wanted to, I'm sure this is probably a question later, so I'll hold on to my thoughts, but yeah, I'm on the same page with y'all as well, so.
No, this is so great. I'm loving this. So my only thing was, I was gonna say, so have you read so I have read all of Sarah J. Maas's universe. Liesl is only on Air, Fire, and Throne of Glass. Have you read her other series?
No, I have not yet. I'm definitely in a period of, I want to read books right now, but at the same time, because I do it for a living, it's not really something I'm gravitating towards on my off time personally.
Right.
Not yet.
It totally makes sense, because, I mean, to me, the Maasverse is something that's going to happen, so, like, it's also Feyre's character's not done, right? right? Because, you know, there's going to be more ACOTAR books coming up.
Just in general, though, I kind of continuing off of that before I say my next question. Do you typically, what is your favorite kind of genre of book?
Oh, it's definitely fantasy. Okay. I love fantasy. I love, 100%. I mean, growing up, that was actually when I got to read a lot. Growing up, when I was a kiddo, I read Harry Potter. Obviously, I have mixed feelings because J.K. Rowling sucks, and I have no problem saying that out loud to everyone here. And I mean, still like Harry Potter. I still have a soft spot, but at the same time, it's been kind of soured a little bit for me too. So there's that. But I also loved the Charlie Bone series. People probably don't know of Charlie Bone, but I loved those books. I liked those even more than Harry Potter. Ooh. And I also really loved Percy Jackson and the Olympians. That was my childhood series. Those were my books. Those were mine. You know how some people are like, oh, Harry Potter's my stuff. No, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, that was mine.
Yeah.
That was mine. So yeah, definitely love fantasy, especially when I was growing up. I loved the fantasy books. I loved to get lost in these worlds. And, I actually loved the blend. That was one of my favorite things about Rick Riordan's books is I really loved this blend of modern day with mythology. I just thought it was so cool. And, kid me was in love. And it's what got me more into mythology from various cultures and made me kind of deep dive into that and my spirituality, because I just like to research. I like to learn, I like to educate myself too as much as I can. So yeah.
Percy Jackson, 100% best choice.
Oh yeah. It doesn't get talked about enough as like that staple kid series, kid as in relative. I love a book. It's kind of like how Avatar: The Last Airbender was for me in like terms of a kid series. It's like for kids, but at the same time has so much content that even for like adult is like,
I am so with you there on Atla. That's a comfort show of mine. I still watch it. I will start from the very beginning when I'm like, I'm in the mood for some animated Atla. Let's go. Let's start from the beginning. I'm right there with you. And you're absolutely right. Like these books, even if their target demographic is, younger, if you go back and read and watch these things as an adult, you're going to pick up on so many things that you missed as a child. And that is what I find for a lot of animated movies, because animated movies are my favorite, of course. And a lot of the animated movies I grew up on, now I'm able to have a different appreciation for them as an adult. For example, Lilo and Stitch, one of my favorite animated movies from Disney. I relate to Nani. I relate to Nani's, I understand where she's coming from, because when I was a kid, I was like, Nani seems kind of mean to Lilo, right? That was what my kid brain was saying at the time. But now that I'm an adult, I'm kind of like, Lilo is being a brat. Lilo is being difficult. Relate to both sisters because they're both going through a really challenging time. And I think that's what's so special about these stories is, yes, it's written with a certain demographic in mind, but you can always go back and appreciate it at a later age.
Yeah. And see things that you have never seen before.
Exactly.
Which is why I personally love Sarah's books so much. Because, we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, so I won't go into it a lot. Technically, ACOTAR and Throne of Glass are for kids. It's technically teen romance. I don't agree with as soon as you get into Mist and Fury and even parts of ACOWAR, even Frost and Starlight, bro, they literally have their famous wall scene at that moment.
I am in agreement. I was pretty shocked when I learned this was considered young adult. I was like, oh, really? Okay. I mean,
I would say that for the first book, because the sex scene was fade to black, and then Mist and Fury happens, and it's like, wait, one.
They're getting jiggy with it. They're doing the hanky panky.
It is so much more in depth. It's like a 6-page sex scene. It's not a fade to black at all. But I mean,
no.
Here as an adult, fucking love it.
Of course.
But yeah, 100%. And then even Throne of Glass, the first 4 or so books I would say is for a teen demographic, and then when you get farther, it's like I don't think so. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah, we did kind of digress, but it was a good digression.
Oh, great! I'm having a time.
Yeah, it's great. You're fitting in right in with us. You're welcome to come back anytime.
I love you so much already.
Oh, well, thank you.
Okay, so next question we've got for you is how do you typically, when you get a new character or a new role, how do you typically lay down your table? How do you go about doing that?
Okay, so just for clarification, you mean table work? Do you mean prep?
Yeah, prep stuff for any role with graphic audio or just in general.
So with the way I do things, I definitely will read the book first. I'm going to read the entire script that I was given, and I'm going to consider whatever notes was given to me as well. And that's that's my biggest prep. Every actor and narrator has their own, they have their own way of doing things. Some people like to really rap out of the script because that helps them. I am not one of those people. I actually think if I do too many markups on my script, it is very distracting for someone like me. And I want the realest, rawest, most powerful performance. And I feel like the best way for someone like me to get that is obviously reading the script, making sure I kind of am aware of what's going to happen when it's coming up, so I'm at least prepared for it. But I also don't want to do markups because it's like, as an actor, that is something you should already kind of have sort of ingrained into your system, right? Like, I'm doing commercial training right now, and Nancy Wolfson is fantastic. If you ever get into commercial voiceover, which you should if you want to get into voiceover, because it pays really good. It's very competitive, but it pays really well when you do.
Tabi's just as competitive.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, you have to be. You've got to be hungry to be an actor, 100%, but so something that Nancy Wolfson is really instilling into my brain is how to basically, get this ingrained into your system. Like, I understand marking up for practice, which is something she requires of us. But when it comes to the scripts themselves, this is an actual project that I have booked. I do not mark up because I want whatever I have been taught to show. I want it to show through and come out. So, and also again, markups for me, very distracting. Like, I don't need a bunch of these colors and whatnot on my paper. I just want to see the words. I've already read the book. Sometimes I'll read the book twice. It really depends, and that is my biggest prep work. A lot of the prep work is really mentally preparing myself because it's such a load. You know what I mean? Like, it's a big undertaking. Even graphic audio. Graphic audio is arguably a lot easier compared to my other audiobook work, because my audiobook work, when it's just me, it's all me. I'm doing everything. I'm doing all of the character voices, and I really commit to the character voices. So I'll go really high, depending if I'm doing a different character, or I'll go really low. It really depends on what I'm doing and who I'm voicing. But with Feyre, now with her in these books, I will say, because I have a young adult voice, I tend to get hired for the young adult books and the teen books and children's books, because of course that's my niche. But I will say in these particular books, there's much darker themes being brought to the table. So for me, there was definitely a little bit of mental and emotional preparation. For example, Court of Mist and Fury, our darling Feyre, our poor Feyre, she was going through a really bad depression. Yeah. And for someone like me who has dealt with depression to that level and who still struggles with depression every now and then, I really had to kind of brace myself for that. But I also wanted to channel that. I know what this is like. I've experienced this. I'm still experiencing it. I'm going to channel this into this performance. Yeah. So yeah, that's my prep is, I do my little bit of reading. I do my reading. I do some notes about the character herself. I was actually provided the Wikipedia, and I was really impressed by that. I was like, wow, this book series has a whole Wikipedia? Well, that's pretty cool. It is a big deal, isn't it? So I definitely referenced Feyre's Wikipedia to help kind of give me a gist of her character, how she kind of develops, and that was really helpful in my portrayal of her, because it's like, okay, because she gets such an amazing, she gets really good character development, I'm going to start her off as a certain way. Like, I'm going to do her portrayal in a certain way at the very beginning. And I want people, hopefully, to notice that in every book, she gets stronger and more confident and more sure of herself and what she wants.
I'm so glad you said, I was literally just about to tell you, I saw it 100%. There was no doubt, especially I've listened to all of the graphic audios. Mm-hmm. And so, because I go to work, I work a 9 to 5. So I also have, I have time, I have time to listen at my work sometimes, especially for an audio. Though sometimes for some scenes I have to wait. I don't know if I can listen to that while I'm at work.
I understand.
So sorry.
I understand.
But no, I saw the progression and it was so beautiful and so, but so subtle that it wasn't something that I was, oh my God, this is a lot. It was so subtle, but so great at the same time.
Thank you. I'm so glad you picked up on it, because that was very intentional. It was very intentional of me. And it was interesting because Colleen and I even had a discussion about it, kind of. It was a very brief discussion. And we were talking about it, and she's like, do you want to make your voice a little bit more projected in the narration? I think we should try that. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. I can make it go deeper, older, whatever you need. And she's like, she thought about it, and she's like, I guess she listened to my audio again, and she's like, you know what? No, I like it where it is. No, just keep going. Keep doing what you're doing. And I was like, okay, all right. I'm just going to follow the script, and I'm going to follow what my instincts as a performer are telling me to do with her character. And so that makes me really happy that you were able to notice it. That's awesome news. is.
Because you're doing a graphic audio, even though you might know what's ahead. I mean, this is my live theater acting coming to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be present in the moment. And I think that's something I do really well as an actor when I'm on stage, is that even though somebody might know what their character ends up being, living in the moment of and taking the journey every night and or, do it, that is so great. Because especially knowing where her character goes, and we all know where her character goes, you can't start out like that. You have to make it so that there is an arc and so that we can hear it. And so great. And so you also have an added extra of having to narrate as well. Because, for graphic, if it's in a third person, they usually have somebody else beside the, just clarifying for our audience sake. If you haven't, you should. At this point, I've talked about it so much, but our audience should listen to the graphic audio. But yes, so Colleen Delaney does the Mist, because up until Mist and Fury, up until Frost and Starlight, it's all in Feyre's first POV.
Yes.
So you have the added bonus of that. And so I just want to reiterate this, and maybe Liesl can add some points. You have such a calming voice to narrate. I never once was just, I don't know, it was either too much or, and I'm not saying this just because you're with
That's okay. If you were.
I mean, I could lie, but I can't.
No, not about this topic. She can't.
No, not about the series. No. It was so calming, while at the same time, even in those moments of, especially in Mist and Fury, I bring it up a lot on our podcast episodes about these moments of just really self-loathing in the beginning, and it's done so well, but at the same time, not too much, because that's what a narrate balance between you being background and then also at the same time coming out and saying a line.
Oh yeah, it's quite the balancing act, because like I said to you earlier, I don't do monotone because it's just not what I resonate with as a performer, as a narrator. You're going to get emotions from me. That's why I usually get hired. That's my selling for a lot of authors, is when they need someone really emotional, someone who can really get you into this perspective, especially when it's first person. I feel like first person, let the emotions out. Give it to us, because this is first person, right? Like we are in this with you. Like this isn't just some random voice narrating and telling a story. This is the character going through these things. So how would this character actually feel, as they're telling their story in the moment, in real time? That's kind of how I look at it. So
I definitely like Tabi said, I can hear it as well. The most times that I've had to listen to graphic audio, it's when I am driving back and forth between Colorado and Indiana, and that's an 18-hour drive. And so I've been using graphic audio as my thing to keep me from freaking out of being alone on the road for 18 hours. And it's definitely very calming. And I appreciate that you're putting so much emotion into it and so much like fluctuation, because I think if you were just monotone, I would already be falling asleep on the road.
That's my issue too. Like it's not just, a taste. It's like my brain literally just checks out. Like I just kind of get distracted and I end up doing something else,
Exactly.
So yeah, but I'm so glad that y'all think my voice is soothing. I have been told that before, that my voice when I'm narrating or, whatever, is very calming and very easy. So that's great. But as you said, I am still narrating. I'm not doing when I'm narrating, I'm not doing the full blown acting, right? I'm not I can't do that, right? Because again, it's a really good balancing act that you have to be careful with, because I am emotional. I'm an emotional narrator, but I have to keep that in check to a certain degree, because if I don't, it'll be way too much. And even still, this is me keeping it in check. And I've still seen reviews from people where they say it was just too much for me. It was a little bit over the top for my liking and whatnot, which is totally valid and understandable. So, that's why you can only do so much, right? Like you have to stay true to yourself and your artistry. And that's like something I've really had to pound into my head. It's like, this is just who I am. This is just my style of narration. Not everyone has to like it, and that's okay, because there's so many other amazing narrators out there that people can listen to, and they will find someone that works well with their brain and like what they hear, So
yeah, something I did want to say, actually kind of related to that, but also going back to what you said about not marking up your script. I'm not a theater person, but I've done a little bit of acting. I did a little bit in my senior year of high school, and a lot of my friends, clearly looking at Tabi, are theater majors or theater people. But in my time of, not even in my time of acting, like just in general, like for my senior recital, my conducting recital, for example, I was told that I had to speak at some point during the recital. And I was recommended, everyone's just like, yeah, you should just write it down and read off of a card or something, like just have note. And I like knew myself. I'm like, no, if I look at these cards, I'm going to start stuttering like crazy. So I'm just going to wing it and see how it goes. And like, I've done that a number of times now. And people are saying like that my best work, my best like speeches come from if I'm not looking at notes or anything. So
Exactly.
that totally resonated with me on that.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that. And I think that's the big thing that people need to keep in mind when they go on their acting journey or whatever they decide to pursue and they want to get training and coaching. Yes, your coach and your trainer is going to give you a lot of valuable information, lots of amazing techniques. But this is part of the journey. It's finding out who you are as an artist and how you operate and how you turn these techniques into your own. Because yeah, we're encouraged all the time to mark up our scripts, right? Because it's supposed to help us. I just quickly discovered this doesn't really do anything for me. This doesn't help me, especially when I'm like, when it distracts me or it's just too much and it's cluttering my script. And for me, it doesn't work. But that's okay because I'll find other ways to like, and this is when, my mind comes into play. I really remind pretty heavily on my mind. Like, even though I don't have to memorize any words, thank goodness. Oh my God. I would be terrible at that. I'm not even going to lie, darling. I'd be awful at that. I'm just being real forward there. I would be terrible. Ooh, I would be improving a lot.
Oh, yeah.
A lot. Yeah. Probably the whole script, to be quite frank. But so, yeah, me personally, even though I don't have to like memorize the script, I still have to really rely heavily on my mind and like my mental notes. Oh, this scene is coming up. So I need to go ahead and prepare myself to do this kind of, fluctuation or this type of emotion and blah, 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 blah. Like my mind is still very heavily engaged. And so, yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to also reiterate again to the audience, like, only are you good at that, the narrating and the balancing act we said. But if anybody is also a fantasy nerd like me, you are also in Crave and you play Grace. And I was so happy when I saw your name on it and I saw your post about it. Because Crave is, okay, if I'm being frank, is not as up there in my God tier books as ACOTAR, but it's definitely one that I really, really enjoy. And yeah, Liesl, I have put her on a book regimen. I know where we're going.
My life is planned for the next 10 years.
Her life is mine now, but also you also love the journey. But I love sharing these books with people I care about, and so the fact that me and you can share something like this, and now we're sharing it with other people, is just such a blessing to me. Because I always felt like I was that weird chick in the corner reading books, and that was I didn't see the community until I started actually going on and seeing things. Like, oh my God, people are so much, and I didn't feel as alone. So
yeah,
I definitely feel that with you 100%.
Oh.
So I listened to Crave. I listened to both halves of it. And oh my goodness, I will say for the audience, if you don't know, you should go listen to Crave. If not, I know it's Melody's voice, and hearing you talk normally, I hear it. But at the same time, like it was such a subtle enough drastic difference that I didn't hear Feyre at all when I heard Grace. Because, sorry, to give Liesl some context, Grace is the main character for Crave, but also she is the narrator, first person. And oh my God, there is so much goddamn narration with that book. There's pages of where there's no dialogue, where it's just Melody setting the scene, and you did it spot on. There was never, there was definitely moments where when I read it the first time, I was like, and then listening to it, I was like, oh my God, we're going on a snowmobile along like da da da. And so I was like sitting there like hopping to myself, hearing you talk. You said that you are about to start the second book.
Yes, I am. So I did actually finish up the narration for part 1 of Crush. So right now I'm waiting on pickups and do-overs. That's basically the last stage for me is whatever I bork, I gotta go and fix, narration wise, because it happens. I mess up a lot. My punch and roll technique helps me a lot. It does, but there are still some stuff that slip. I mean, honestly, this is one of my favorite ones from the ACOTAR series. It still rings. It's so hilarious. Colleen, sent me a do-over one day. She's like, oh, I missed one here. You said drink from my goblin and it says goblet. And I was like, oh, that's awkward. Thank you, Colleen.
That's a me move though, 100%.
Oh yeah, 100%. I get words mixed up all the time. I combine words that are not actually words.
You have spinnerisms.
Yeah, pretty much. So, I was just saying, yes, I wrapped up narration for Crush Part 1. We're just waiting on pickups.
That is so awesome. Because I just wanted to tell everybody how subtly enough your character, and maybe that's my opinion. Maybe somebody else has the opinion, like, oh, I just heard Feyre and that's all I could hear. I think it's because me and Liesl are musicians, and I think we hear a subtle enough shift in tone. It's almost like changing key for us.
It's definitely very similar to that. And then also on top of that, I went to a lot of musical theater when I was younger as well. So I can hear, I'm used to people singing in different characters. And so I think that helps a lot. Like, I mean, of course, back when we interviewed Gabriel, I hadn't heard too much of the graphic audio yet. Tabi played a part of Fourth Wing for me. And I couldn't hear the same. I couldn't hear Gabriel's voice as Lucian versus Xaden at all. I'm like, wait, I don't even know these characters, but I don't hear Gabriel. How is that possible?
Yeah, it's really interesting how it works, because so part of that is going to be the script, of course, because even if we're using our regular, and this is something you get preached and taught in voiceover, at the end of the day, it's really not about all the different voices you can do. Sure, I can go all the way up here and do this sort of voice, but that doesn't mean anything if I can't play that character, if I can't play that personality to a T, right? Because they're going to book someone who can do that voice, but most importantly, act the part. Actually, they could pick someone with a lower voice than that, which is probably not what they originally envisioned, but because their acting was so spectacular for that character, they're like, we have no choice. Like, we gotta pick you. It's always going to be about the acting. And so the thing with Grace, even though Grace and Feyre are both young women, and they're both at that kind of vulnerable stage of like figuring out who they are, what they want, and they don't really know anything, I actually feel like Grace a little bit more confident and knowing of who she is than Feyre.
100%.
I think Grace, I mean, here's the thing. Grace is, she is naive. She lives in Delululand, but that's okay because she's confident about it. She's confident about living in Delululand. And you know what? I love this for her. And so playing her was really fun for me because even though Feyre and her have some similarities, like they both have gone through some really challenging times, they both are going through quite the journey. Yeah. I feel like Grace is on a different confidence level than Feyre. And I feel like Grace is more, like, and here's the thing, I'm not saying Grace is like super duper confident, but I think Grace is a little bit more in tune with who she is from the get-go. And like, especially with the way she talks, like she carries herself with confidence. She's smart, she's witty, she's quick, she's got all the sass, all of it. And that's really fun for performer to play because I'm a sassy person too. So I was like, oh, this is great. I get to channel a little bit more of me into this character. Yeah. Love that for me. And like with Feyre was more serious to me. Yes. Feyre had moments where she was a little bit of a smart butt, right? She had a little wit, but it just wasn't to Grace's level, right? And to be fair, in Feyre's defense, she was in a very serious environment. She was constantly in danger. She was constantly in unknown territory, so I get why her tone was a lot more serious, a lot more grounded, and like even fearful because she was just constantly in those situations. Grace, not so much. And even then, even when Grace is in danger, again, she's in Delululand, so,
Oh my god, oh my gosh. My favorite, because this is about Avatar, I don't want to get off sidetrack, and because at least I don't want to let people out of the know, but my favorite Grace scene, it was after the snowball fight, and it was just like, what is going on here? Like, everyone around her knows what's going on, and she's just like, no, I'm gonna stand here, and we're gonna have this conversation. It's like, are you okay? Oh my, also, you playing aside Anthony again, I was already happy, but I knew the difference, Liesl, since, we talked with Anthony before about how he played Flint, and so their characters interact a lot in the first one anyway. And again, even though I know the voices and I know it's Rhysand and Feyre, I didn't get messed up in, it's Rhysand and Feyre. It was very clearly not them. So I wanted to highlight that for you 100%.
Well, thank you so much. And I totally get where you're coming from about it, saying, we're performers ourselves and we're, involved with music, so we can really have a greater, because that's just true. When you're involved in these industries or in these mediums, you're going to have a greater understanding of it compared to people who don't, who just aren't part of it and they're just a listener, right? And that's not to say listeners can't pick up on things, but I feel like we can pick up on things in a much, like, with more of a magnifying glass, right? Because it's just what we do. Especially if it's been part of our lives for so long, like it's just ingrained at that point, right? So I totally get what you're saying. It's like me when people are singing. I can pick up on those pitchy notes. I know when you're off key, Pookie. I heard it. So
that is relatable. That's Liesl 100%.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Very relatable. Yeah. I'm right there with you. I try not to do that, of course, because okay, well, we're going to take that hat off, let people live their life and do their thing. So
Judge them silently on the inside.
Exactly.
I only do that to the people who are just like, yeah, I'm so great. And then they sing and I'm like,
oh yeah, I've had some people like that in the voiceover community where they're like, oh yeah, I'm a great singer. And then I take a listen and I'm like, well, you're certainly something. You are hitting notes. There is something audible going on right now. Yes. So
you're hitting notes. They're not the right ones, but they're notes.
But you're hitting some. Kind of like with a sledgehammer and no grace. But that's okay. That's okay.
Somebody who's like a subtle way of saying that, like without, is like you could be good at character singing.
Oh.
But in the musical theater community, that's a way of saying like you can't.
Ouch.
We've talked about this before. Musical theater people are savage. We did want to ask you, so we picked out a couple of quotes. Liesl's doing a thing where she's adding the quotes to the first of the episode, kind of as like an intro with a song.
Okay.
We would love to clip it and then share it at the beginning.
Okay, let me take a look-see real quick.
This is so great. You're so fun.
Thank you.
And nice. And relatable.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, so many compliments. I don't know what to do with them. Thank you. I like these ones. I remember these ones, yeah. When you spend so long trapped in darkness, you find that the darkness begins to stare back. No one was my master, but I might be master of everything, if I wished, if I dared.
Now we're getting into our spoilery section. So for anybody who has, and then we're on the podcast, if any this is a spoiler warning, listen at your own risk. If you don't want to hear anything, everything is up for discussion now. Talk about in the ACOTAR unit. There's your warning.
Spoiler.
So I guess like my first question is, so you talked a little bit earlier about, what you thought of Feyre, and especially about her being young in the first, but like, what do you think of her journey just in general? Like all the way even up to, the present Silver Flame.
I feel like her journey has been pretty brutal. I feel like she's really gone through it, and I feel like she's been judged pretty harshly for everything that she's been put through. And to be quite frank, do I agree with every decision she's made? No, of course not. But can I sit here and honestly pretend that I would have done a way better job?
Mm-hmm.
No, probably not. I feel like I will say the one thing I'm disappointed in is that she really took a back seat in A Court of Silver Flames. I understand that this is a perspective change. I know that this book is focusing more on Nesta.
Right.
But I feel like Feyre is such a prominent character that for her to be like put on the back burner like that was pretty brutal to me. I was like, well, I went from having so many lines in the books to having like 2. So and I like Nesta, by the way. I want to make that clear. I actually like Nesta. So
we do too.
I think, and I guess this is, well, okay. So I'll like defend Sarah J. Maas till the end, and I know that's not what you're saying at all. I will say, I think for me, the reason I thought that Feyre took such a backseat is because Nesta gave her such a backseat. Not just only a perspective change, but it's like how even Rhys was perceived as mean and territorial and grumpy, and it's like, because we're not seeing him as Feyre sees him. We're seeing the very like protector daddy Rhys-Anne going on here. I don't want to say guarded, but yeah, guarded. And I think the reason that, she's on the back burner is because Nesta put Feyre on the back burner for so long, and not really till the end is she come out and gonna be prominent.
Yeah, and I totally get that. So, it's not a big deal, but I think her journey has been it's been really intense, really interesting, but it's definitely made her grow a lot. Like she's had no choice but to grow. Like in this type of world, you either get strong or get eaten. So, make your pick, I guess.
Right.
So now I assume now, you've read all 5 of the books. So what was your like overall impression? Like just how they progressed from book 1 up to book 5, and just overall, what did you think of the series?
So if I'm being perfectly honest, when I got done with the whole book series, I kind of went, this is it? Because let me tell you, this book was hyped up to high heaven, right? So I was like, okay, this is going to have to blow my mind. This is going to have to make me quaketh in my boots, so this has to be like really, really good. And to me, I was like, oh, this is young adult. It is, the writing's definitely young adult, and you know what? That's not a bad thing, because why? I love young adult. So I have to, right? Because that's what I write all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I will say in terms of writing, I do think it was hyped up quite a bit, and I don't know if it matches that hype, at least to me. But I will say that I thought the dialogue was really good. I actually wished Feyre had more dialogue, to be perfectly honest. I wish she had even more. But overall, you know, the book series was really entertaining. Again, as a performer, I had so much fun. I had so much fun narrating. I had so much fun, you know, voice acting as Feyre, because again, I had to put so much thought into her character. I had to rewind. I had to put myself back into my 19-year-old shoes again and remember, how was I a 19? And the truth is, when I was 19, I was a mess. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted. I wasn't fully developed. And, you know, and then I had to amplify that, and I had to imagine myself being the person who has to take care of all of my family. I even asked Colleen that. I was like, hold up. Why is the baby the one taking care of everyone else? What in the world? That doesn't make any sense. I'm just saying, like, that was something I had to remind myself, oh, Feyre is the youngest, despite the fact that she's doing all of the work. So I had to do this really interesting balancing act of, she's the baby, she is young, and she's in very scary situations. So how would I, if I were in her shoes, how would I feel if I were in those scary situations? But at the same time, there has to be a side to her that's nurturing, a side to her that's, you know, very patient and caring. Right. You know, she's just a very complex character, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what made her so fun for me to portray. And that's what made narrating the story from her point of view so much fun. You know, that, and like, so the books, again, you know, I'm going to look at this. I have two different opinions. As a reader, I'm kind of like, okay, it's pretty good. Not too bad, you know, not too shabby. But as like a performer, I'm like, this was really fun. I had so much fun. I had so much fun with this character in this story, because I do think they're two very different perspectives. And, you know, I do love the world. I really like, again, I like Nesta a lot. Nesta is definitely one of my favorite characters, if I'm going to decide to not be biased and go, oh yeah, I love Feyre. I'm like, no, okay, put that to the side. No, I really like Nesta. I really like Lucien. I'm really hoping that our Lucien gets some happiness, because my goodness, I feel like he's like, and see, this is the thing with me about books, right? I love characters. A lot of people are like, oh, I love world building. I love the world that's constructed. I do like that. Don't get me wrong. But for me, it's all about the characters. Oh. If these characters are likable, lovable, and you've got me hooked. I'm into it. And I will say, some of these characters are fantastic. I love Lucien. Lucien's fantastic, and he deserves better. And here's the thing. I know everyone hates Tamlin, but I even like Tamlin, because again, he's a complicated character. This was the first love interest of Feyre. And, you know, yeah, he was pretty not so great in the second book. Like, he could have handled that better. But I think people forget to give him a little grace, because he also went through something very traumatic himself. Like, they both were, you know, traumatized and trying to navigate through that. Obviously, we have higher expectations for him, because he is like, what, ancient? So meanwhile, Feyre is still like literally 20, you know? So yeah. I get the hate towards Tamlin, because he was not great in the second book. He really wasn't. And even in the later books, he was not great. Like, he did some stuff that I was like, not great. Although, I'm going to be honest, one of my favorite things to perform was definitely the scandalous interaction at the war room. You know, when all of the court lords were, I loved that scene. Oh my gosh, I loved it. As a performer and as a reader, I loved that. I loved the roasting and the shit talk and I love it so much. It's like, this is my cup of tea. This is what I like to read and perform, especially perform, because, you know, it's so fun being petty, because I don't get to do that in real life, right? Like, I don't get to be, no, you gotta be cool and chill and actually a good person in real life. But when you get to be in the book, it's like, oh, now I can be a dick. Like, fabulous.
Fuck it. I got it. No,
love the High Lord meeting.
Yeah. The High Lord meeting was fabulous.
I'm so excited to get there, like, in our main, because that'll just be like its own episode.
Oh yeah.
I'm so glad that you bring up about the characters, because I don't think that's like said well enough. Like, my short and quick and dirty version of why I love Sarah's books is, I don't think I've ever read another young adult fantasy, or like in that term, where I cared about more than just the main character. Like, yeah, even the side characters, I was like, oh, great. Like, enough character building where I was like really invested. On top of there was world. And then like moments and whatnot, I think is the first time I saw, and this is just me personally, I don't know about Liesl, but like, it was the first time seeing a character who wasn't the nice, pretty virgin at the beginning of the book. She was experienced enough in a way, and then like had sex and or flooded or whatever they said.
Because it's realistic. I mean, like, the truth is a lot of people are not, perfect virgins. They've never had sex or any experience with sexual stuff ever at all, period. And that's not relatable. That's not realistic. Like, most people, I mean, I'm sure that there are definitely people who keep it in their pants and whatnot till a respectable age, of course. But I mean, Feyre's 19. I don't see her being this adorable, precious little gumdrop who, doesn't know what to do with herself down there. And I also liked that. I too thought that was very refreshing. And I love characters who are like, again, they're in tune with themselves about some things. Like, yeah, I like sex. I like that. It's like, cool. That's respectable. A lot of people are like, oh, like I have, like, this was the love of my life and I've never had sex ever. I am like, and it's also like some of these book descriptions where they're like, oh my God, I'm so skinny, but my big old boobs are like weighing me down, or like half my weight. And it's like, and my perfect curly hair is such a mess and it gets in the way. Or my flawless pale white skin can't have it marred by a scar. And it's like, okay, all right, enough. And
then you got Feyre, who has scars all over her hands and has...
Yeah, Feyre's messed up. Yeah, Feyre's messed up. Like, she...
Yes, and on top... Oh my God, sorry. You just, like, said again, like, I've been having this with you all night, where you're saying, like, exactly what I'm thinking, but just saying it way more in tune and way more eloquently said than I would say it. But I think what's also great about that as well is because, this was the first time that, she didn't end up with the first person she was with.
Yeah.
Like, the very realistic set of expectations about you fall in love with the first person and that was good for that moment. And then life, circumstances happen and you're no longer compatible.
Yep.
And things go in different ways. And I loved that.
I also like that too. It was a really cool, pleasant surprise for me going into this like super blind when I was performing it and finding out, oh, she does not end up with Tamlin, because all these things happened. Tamlin did not process his trauma very well, and he even took out his insecurities and his fears onto her and limited her, and then almost downright abused her. And that pushed her away, which is totally valid. Pretty much anyone else in her position would probably feel the exact same way. Like, oh my gosh, this is not going to work. And yeah, so so that was a very long spiel of basically, as a reader, I think they're pretty good. And I'm not going to say they're the best thing since sliced bread, at least not for me, but I did think they were pretty good. Now, as a performer, so entertaining, very entertaining for me, because the narration, again, I love first person narration for a reason. It is my favorite for a reason. And that is because when you give me a heroine who is emotional, who is not altogether perfect, that's just some of the most fun I ever have when I'm performing a character, is I get to perform those flaws, even healing, even cathartic, for us, because we're people. And I feel like as women in society, there is a lot of pressure to be a certain way, present as a certain way. If you're a femme person, there's a lot of pressure. So it's so nice in books when I get to be messy, when I get to be flawed. And it does kind of suck, though, that criticism still kind of follows us even to the books, though. The main character, again, poor Feyre, always being called stupid or so whiny and wishy-washy and just all these really harsh criticisms. And she's only 19. And it's like, I have a question. If this was a mass character, would they be receiving the same criticism to this degree, to this level? Or would we be like, oh, he's just a boy, he's figuring it out?
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. I do have a quick question, actually.
Of course.
Just popped up. I know you said that you liked the High Lord meeting, but what would you say is like your favorite scene from all the books that you got to do? Or that is just your favorite in general?
Ooh, I'm going to have the very controversial opinion of I really liked Rhys's death.
Wow.
As a performer.
Okay.
As a performer.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, let me clarify. As a performer.
That makes sense.
Yes, not as a reader. As a performer, that was so fun for me because I got to dig deep in my soul and let it rip. Just let that heartache rip. ship because, whew, that was rough. Colleen, even in this scene, she was all like, "You're gonna make me cry," and I was like, "I'm sorry, but also good." That's the goal. And the screaming was so nice to do, and it was really powerful. It was really, really powerful. But I like that scene a lot. I do think that's my favorite as a performer. But I think as a reader, I really liked the scene where Rhys is essentially kind of spiraling and Feyre is trying to bring him back and to come to. I think he was dreaming. I believe this was when he was dreaming. And it was a really...
on this.
Yeah. And I think he was really, really upset. And he was having one of his very rare, very few vulnerable moments. And we got to see this more mature, this more nurturing and compassionate side to Feyre. And it was just such a beautiful moment for both characters, in my opinion. So as a reader, I personally really liked that scene a lot. You know, as a reader, I loved that scene. I loved performing it too, but I just loved the intensity of Rhys's death and that build-up, that sweet, delicious build-up to that horror of her realizing what just happened.
Yeah.
You did make, I don't remember where I was when I listened to it first time, but like hearing the scream, hearing the like, you have to bring him back, you have to bring him back. The whole, oh my God.
When I get there, I'm not prepared. Like, I remember, so I think I've mentioned this. Actually, no, I haven't, obviously, in the main one, but I told Tabi this. When we were doing our initial book talk, we were reading the third book, and I was just telling her, like, I have a bad feeling someone's gonna die. Like, it better not fucking be Rhys. And then it happened, and I was, like, texting, spamming her, just, no, it can't be. And so I'm like, I mean, it is a powerful scene, so I am not prepared to hear it.
Yeah, I have a pretty strong stomach. Like, it's not easy to make me cry, but I definitely was feeling it in that moment because, you know, as a performer, you really put yourself in that moment and it's really hard to like move on from that. And I got to feel so many emotions with that scene. I got to feel the devastation, the sadness, the horror, the anger. Like, why isn't anyone doing anything? Like, you saved me, you saved my life. Why can't you do the same thing for him? You know, just all those complicated emotions into one cauldron, one boiling pot. See what I did there? And it was so fun as a performer. But I really loved the moment that Rhys was actually not together. He was vulnerable, really vulnerable, and actually really needed her in that moment. Mm-hmm. And they were there for, you know, with each other. And I just thought it was beautiful. I just thought it was really beautiful.
And that's why your and I wanted to tell you this earlier. That's why your performance, or you and Anthony's performance of Chapter 55. First of all, can I just say it was funny? He didn't know what I meant. And because he's not on social media as much. Chapter 55 is a staple. You hear it, you know.
Yeah.
You know. And first of all, you as a performer in like the sex scenes and the intimate scenes, spot on. Amazing.
Thank you.
It was, and especially because you also like at the same time, kind of like in the, like, you know, with the guys, you had your favorite voice, but then especially in that moment. So it was specifically blah, 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 here in the rummages of my mind, here, eat the soup thing. And then funny as hell. In a moment of really like, you know, an intimate moment, there's still a funny soup bit that's still ongoing after he just exposited all this information. And then Feyre's like, just eat. And then she sits in his lap. And like, first thing that she says is just like, I see you. I love you. I'm proud that you're my mate. It didn't even need to apologize. Didn't even need to say anything. All she needed to say. Yep. It was so well done and so well executed. And then the preceding pages.
Yes.
When Rhys proceeds to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah, did he actually? No, he did eat the soup.
He did eat the soup.
It's especially as somebody who acts and whatnot, it's like it's not that it's like I know because you guys are professional actors, like it's obviously something you can do, but it's like for me, if I don't have somebody there with me and like feeding off of like a voice or an energy, like that is a different level of talent to be able to do that when you don't necessarily have like the respondent in the room.
Thank you. Yeah, it can be really hard. And to be fair, it is way easier when you have someone there to perform with you. And that is one thing Colleen did that was very helpful. Like, yes, she was the director, but she would actually like perform the characters' lines in the scenes. I mean, it was funny because she's not the character and whatever, but she was giving us something to bounce off of. And it was really helpful because, I mean, you're right. Like, as a voice actor, this is something I've kind of had to just get used to, is performing completely on my own. Like, I've been part of many projects where I didn't have a director and I would just be sent a script and these lines, good luck. And I would give them 3 different takes of each line, kind of visualizing what this could line be about. You truly have to learn how to self-direct if you want to be a voice talent. I have definitely figured out, because even still, I did the narration on my own. I didn't have any direction for that. That was all me. So, but yeah, it is definitely hard, but I think the more you do it, easier it gets. It gets a lot easier. So that's just, which is like, right? Like that's the case for pretty much everything. It gets easier the more you do it. And again, the more confident you become. The more confident you become and like, you know what? I know what this scene is about. I know what this line is pertaining to. So let's do it. And yeah, I mean, that's what helps me, of course. And hey, you know, again, I'm channeling Grace Foster. Hey, even if I'm wrong, I'm in Delululand and I'm feeling like pretty confident and sure of myself until I get slapped in the face and well, that was totally wrong. That was all sorts of incorrect. But, you know, love the confidence. Love the enthusiasm.
That's so great. And so before Liesl, if you want to ask I was going to ask you if you wanted to promote anything you've been doing besides Crave or like other things that you want to.
I would love to. So the first thing that I want to say is thank you so much again for letting me be part of this. It's been so much fun. You two are delightful and I've just really enjoyed this. It's always fantastic to speak with people who kind of understand acting already and, you know, because more in-depth conversations. As for promoting, I'm definitely working on some more audiobook projects. I kind of have too many lined up to sort of go down the list. I will say, sorry, I hope that doesn't sound like a brag. I do not mean it to sound that way. It's more like I am overbooked and I need to get it together and catch up.
Okay.
But it's very good for me. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I mean, I'm a voice actor too. Like I'm not just a narrator. So I've done a lot of like indie game projects and things like that. So I'm trying to get more into that because I've been kind of an audiobook hell lately. I've been doing a lot of narration and I love it and I'm grateful, but oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah.
But I do want to promote Angelina Steffert's books. I, as well as Anthony, as well as Gabriel, as well as John Vertullo are in a cast. We're doing a full cast of her Quarter Mage series. And this is going to have the whole cast. So every character gets their own voice and it has music, it has sound effects. And this is also courtesy of Gabriel and Diana, who also voices in the book. So if you enjoy The Cruel Prince and ACOTAR, the Quarter Mage series is both of those combined. So you get more of my narration in the first person. I am voicing Sanja. That's her name. She is a fabulous character. She reminds me a little bit of Feyre, but imagine if Feyre was more like royalty, because she literally is. Sanja is literally royalty. So I really recommend her books. I think she's a fantastic writer, and she's a wonderful person too. And The Quarter Mage, I am hoping, is going to be out soon because we have worked on it for a long time, and I am so ready for it to be out because I want to talk about it so much. I want to talk about this audiobook because it's going to be really, really good. Gabriel and Diana have worked so hard on the editing and mastering of it. So I'm just so excited for this book to come out. And I think everyone who's a fan of ACOTAR, Crave, any of the romantasy I've been doing, you will love this series. So I want to promote that.
Yay.
And of course, I'm going to promote my website. If you want to keep up with all the projects that I am working on, I make sure to update it very frequently with like what's released and what's new. If you want to keep up with me, follow my socials, which are conveniently linked on my website at voicesofmelody.com. I would be so grateful for any and all support. And of course, I do my absolute best to everybody updated on what I'm doing on my voiceover journey.
That's so great. Will has talked to us about Quarter Mage. He's going to give me a download, so I'm going to be one of the first people to be given feedback or in my all the.
Oh, how fabulous! That's so exciting. That's really good. Yay. Okay, great. Fantastic.
I'm excited because it was so nice talking to you. Your inspiration, just talking to you, reinvigorates my own passion. And just knowing that there's also a lover of fantasy, of magic, a fellow Disney princess, all of those things we've been saying is just so not only, like I said, you giving a good performance, but also being a good person, a good act that shines through. And it's just, I would love to have you on again when we talk about Crave and, maybe later down the line, if we add the Quarter Mage to our podcast role. I think when we started this highlight, and I've told this to everybody at the end of my little outro thing, is that, I kind of Hail Married this when I sent, initial, kind of like you said, hold on, screw it, submit. It was a long shot idea where I was like, I really I love these voice actors and I want to talk to them. Even if it's just a phone call and they don't even come on the pod. I want us to talk, even talking to you as just a person, not even just talking about like book is already so great. It's like a fellow new friend in general. And we would love to have you on again. This was so great.
Oh, I would love to be part of this again. And I definitely think bringing on crave or whatever book series and I would be more than happy. Like if I think there's a book series that is relevant to your podcast that we should talk about, I'll be sure to message you and, say, hey, do you want to do an interview about this book series? Because I've got some other things in the works. I just did a contract with another author, and he does a lot of young adult with fantasy, and there will be romance. So, that might be really fun to talk about.
Yeah.
But that would just be me narration. That's the only thing. It's just me.
Well,
just you.
like I told Anthony, I feel like all four of you guys that we've talked to, like I could listen to like a 20-hour audiobook and I'd be fine, even if there weren't other voices.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know.
Already love. So, well, keep in contact. This is going to be great. And okay, so guys, we will see you guys in the next episode. We will be going through chapters 57 through 60 of Mist and Fury. We're getting near the end of the book. So, it was such a pleasure to have since this is a spoiler section, the High Lady. I was going to say this earlier, but I couldn't say it because it wasn't the spoilers. Have our own High Lady of Night on. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's so exciting.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.